climate action plan. And we have Brenda Thomas, who is, I'll let Brenda and Christine introduce themselves. We have a team who's starting with the first part of this overall climate action plan here today. And so today we'll just, share a brief overview and get into the public engagement component as well as the implementation grants. So Brenda or Christine, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Brenda Thomas with the Fresno Council of Governments. I'm the Administrative Services Manager and the Public Information Officer for Fresno COG. So I'll be doing in charge of a lot of outreach for the PCAP process.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Kai. It's so nice to see everyone again. I am now the Director of Mobility for Central and Northern California at LSA. I am serving as the project manager on the consulting side. Back to you, Simran.
Thank you. So get started with the project overview for the Priority Climate Action Plan. So it is the first element of the overall climate action plan. It'll be preceding the comprehensive climate action plan that will be kicking off after the conclusion of this plan. And it'll be consisting of a GHG inventory from various sectors and identifying, the key or priority sectors, as well as a low income and disadvantaged communities benefit analysis. It is set to be complete by March 1st. And it's essential in, it's a catalyst in receiving the implementation grants from EPA, which totals $4.6 million. And so we'll be able to talk about this later in the presentation. So here is the timeline for the Priority Climate Action Plan. We are going to be having public outreach concurrently with all of the technical activities, which include the GHG inventory and the quantification, as well as completing a benefit analysis. And we're hoping to bring it before our 3 committees in February, so we can meet that March 1st deadline for US EPA. And so I'll cover the deliverables for the Priority Climate Action Plan, but before I share what each deliverable is, I'm going to provide a bit of background. So for GHG inventory, for those of you who might not be familiar with GHG inventory, it's the accounting of greenhouse gases emitted to or from the atmosphere over a specific historical period of time and from various activities across the economy. And it varies by the region and depends on the economics and other circumstances. And so with that, the GHG inventory for the Priority Climate Action Plan will consist of emissions from the following sectors: transportation, waste management, agriculture, residential and commercial buildings, electricity generation, and industry. So that's the first piece of this plan. The second is the measure quantification. And so per EPA's guidelines, the definition is the intention to include programs and policies, measures, and projects that will achieve or facilitate the reduction of the greenhouse gas air pollution. So identifying how to mitigate those emissions. And so it will include a measure level quantification for the priority measures and 1 or more sectors for this first segment. And again, there's those sectors that we'll be including in this Priority Climate Action Plan. The last element of the Priority Climate Action Plan is a low income and disadvantaged communities benefit analysis. So we were able to use the EPA's climate and economic justice screening tool to create this map. There's a link in this presentation. This presentation will be shared with you, where you can compare this map to the Fresno COG's environmental justice communities definition. And this will be guiding us in that benefit analysis. And so again, to reiterate, the Priority Climate Action Plan, or PCAP, will include a preliminary analysis of benefits to the low-income and disadvantaged communities as a result of the GHG reduction measures. And here is a comprehensive overview of what the deliverables will be from this Priority Climate Action Plan. And so for you all here today and the public, we have this is our first official stakeholder steering committee meeting. We have our 16 local member agencies, local governments, and a representative from the disadvantaged communities, a transit, the air district, and industry representatives. And the role is to provide input and guidance for the recommendations that will be made by the project team throughout the technical process. We would highly encourage, and I know Brenda will harp on this later in the presentation, for our stakeholder steering committee to serve as a conduit to the public and their jurisdictions and their staff and their specific industry to share with us what they would like to see with this GHG reduction priority measure and overall plan. So this next slide just has all of our representatives on the stakeholder steering committee, and I'm really appreciative of all of you taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here and listen to our presentation and be a part of the process to mitigate GHG, but also give our region ample opportunity to see improvements to the air quality and secure funding for important projects. And with this, I will pass it over to Brenda to discuss our public outreach for the PCAP.
Great. Thank you, Simran. Thank you. Fresno COG has already begun developing some communication strategies and tools to assist with the PCAP public outreach. Next slide. We started by creating this online community engagement hub. We have an overarching hub for all things Fresno COG that are larger public outreach items. It replaces having individual websites for projects. You don't have to create a whole new website, and then we can integrate comments, and I'll go through that. But it's been a wonderful tool for us. So we've used this software for about 3 years, and we're expanding and using more functionality within it. So this is a screenshot of the homepage. You can access it through either one of these links, and we can create specialized links for it. This is a QR code also that goes strictly or straight to the engagement hub. You just scan that with your phone even right now if you want to, and it'll take you into what we've built so far. Next
Brenda?
slide. Yes.
Sorry, we have a hand up. I don't know if you want to take that now.
Mike, we can, Mike, if it's okay, we can hold questions for the end of the presentation.
Well, okay, I'll hold it till the end of the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Currently, the hub includes 7 tabbed pages. I just added one right before this meeting with new information, containing information, resources, and though I imagine we'll continue to add information and more tabs as we move forward with the process, which will make the information easier to access rather than having to hunt through Fresno COG's website to try to find what you're looking for. The first tab contains a timeline of the PCAP process, outlining what's happening, when it's happening, so that people can see where we are in the process and what's coming up. Simran just had a little more in her timeline than we've got on the engagement hub, so I'll probably add a lot of those specialized line items to our timeline as we move forward. I'm also building a background information section on the regional plan or the PCAP and the CCAP as we move forward. That will contain outside links to more detailed information. It'll explain a little bit more as we move along what these terms are, where they come from, you know, the requirements of each one as well. And so I just started adding content to that right before this meeting as well. And so take a look at that, and we're always open to suggestions if you think there's something more that needs to be added, something that's not explained well enough. So please let me know. Then we have opportunities to learn, comment, and further engage under the Get Involved tab. And this will house all the community input opportunities that we're going to be releasing if we do a survey, if there's a way to comment on something or something we're specifically looking for a comment on, you for sure will see it in that section. The next is the meeting information and links. So this will house all of the summaries of previous meetings, any presentations. This presentation will be linked there. If we make actual recordings of meetings available, we'll load them to our YouTube page and link them from this section. So anything related to a meeting will be placed here. Next, we have a sign-up form set up within the hub for the public to submit their contact information, which will allow us to stay in touch with them regarding the PCAP process via email right now. So if they submit their email to us, we will be doing regular updates and it'll go out to everyone who signs up. If you're a stakeholder, you do not need to do that. But if you're a public member attending, I recommend you go into the engagement hub and sign up so you don't miss anything. And then almost lastly, staff's direct contact information. So Simran's and my contact information are included, our website link and our physical address are included on the contact page in case you want to contact one of us directly and you don't already have our email address. And then today I added a resources tab that includes links to that disadvantaged community comparison map that Simran just showed you. And we will be adding more resources there as we move forward. Anything that helps with tools, advanced understanding, that kind of thing will be there under the resource tab. Next slide. We've also set up a dedicated PCAP email address as well as a voicemail for the public to submit their comments. When comments are received, I'm immediately sent a notification while the comments are transcribed, translated, and added to a database of comments that we've received to date through this particular system. Of course, people can always email us directly, but if you email us through the email address listed here or call the voicemail phone number, and when prompted, enter the code, you will be able to leave comments in any language. It's best equipped for transcribing from English or Spanish, but it's available to those who speak any language. We can always forward the voicemail comments and emails to a translator if we're unable to translate it ourselves here in the office. And then, of course, anyone may choose to email, again, Simran or I, or responding to any social media comment. Those comments are pulled directly into the hub's comment database and direct messaging into our accounts. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we've dabbled in Nextdoor, but it's not been very fruitful so far. And also X, which we use a little bit less than the others. So you can look for information there. If someone does, again, place a comment to one of our posts, public input will pull that and put it right in with all the comments we're receiving for everything else. Next slide. Aside from driving people to the engagement hub to learn more about the climate action plans and ask questions that way, we will be going to the communities to ask them for input on the priority measures mid-November through mid-December. We'll be generating online and hard copy surveys in English and Spanish, which we will ask specific questions related to the identified priorities that come out of the research from this project. The effort will be publicized through our community partners, as Simran mentioned. This stakeholder group will be asking you to share those English, Spanish information, emails, social media posts, and let us know if any community groups may want to meet with us as we move forward and have a specific presentation. We'll also be doing a lot of social media. We don't have a set budget for this out of the project. It's coming out of Fresno COG's public outreach budget. But we will be doing some social media ads and things, and we do get a good response from that. We do in English, Spanish. We reach out to specific sectors of the population or just general. But if we need to focus in on a specific community, it's a good way to do it as well. And then we'll be releasing also media releases, which I don't have on here, and trying to get together with some of the news stations to get the word out to the public, maybe do some interviews with staff. And then we'll be doing in-person and virtual meetings across the county, which include any community events that we can book. So there's a lot going on this time of year. For fall, hopefully there's some stuff going on in mid-November that we can participate in that's already planned out in the community. And we'd be happy to go out and meet with people and get their input on the priority measures. Next slide. And then community input results. Who will see it? How will it be used? All of the public input we receive will be posted directly into the engagement hub. So you'll be able to go in there and read the summaries and exact comments of people who have given us their input on those priorities. And it'll be shared with you at this stakeholder committee meeting. Your next one is January 10th at 2 o'clock. And so we'll be submitting all of the comments to the stakeholder steering committee for review. And then we will take it to Fresno COG standing committees, our transportation technical committee, our policy advisory committee, and then Fresno COG's policy board in February 2024 for them to make some final decisions. Next slide. And that's it for my part. I'd be happy to take any questions at the end of the presentations.
All right, thank you. So we want to talk about the implementation grants today because, first of all, the implementation grant, the applications for the implementation grant is going to be based on the PCAP that we're working on, we're developing today. And we do have very short timeline. The PCAP is due to EPA by March 1st, but the application for the implementation grants are due by April 1st. So there's urgency that we want to bring this implementation grant to your attention so that the region does not miss the opportunity. Next. All right, so as Simran and Brenda mentioned, that there is a total of $4.6 billion available for this EPA's implementation grant, among which 4.3 billion is available nationwide, and the rest of the 0.3 billion is available for tribes only. EPA will grant awards between $2 million to $500 million for the grants. They wouldn't grant awards less than $2 million or more than $500 million. And no match is required for this grant. Next. As I mentioned, the timeline is really tight. EPA issued the NOFA for the implementation grant in September. And the optional notice of intent will be due February 1st next year. And applications are due April 1st. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the application for funding needs to be for the priority measures that's going to be developed for the PCAP, which is due March 1st to EPA. So we do have very, very tight timeline. Next. The eligible applicants are government agencies, including state agencies, local governments, the air district, the council of governments, or a coalition of all these eligible entities. Each agency can apply for an individual, can submit one individual application, or can be the lead applicant for application that's from a coalition of governments, agencies. Next. I also want to mention that EPA emphasized in their NOFA guideline that they will not grant awards to multiple applications under the same priority measure for the same location. So we need to pay attention that we don't duplicate our efforts. I want to give you an example of what kind of GHG reduction measures programs will be eligible for the implementation grants. This is just examples I took out of the guidelines. Does not really mean that the programs is going to be in our priority measure, or it could or could not, or these are the it does not mean this application should go to EPA either. So for example, for the transportation sector, programs such as that will increase the share of EV or expand the EV charging infrastructure will be eligible. For the ag sector, incentives programs to fund electric agriculture equipment technology will be eligible too. And for the building sectors, programs and policies to promote electrification of government-owned and commercial and residential building will be eligible too. Next. So just like all the other federal grants, the application, the requirement for the application is very comprehensive. It's very technical. It requires a lot of supporting documents. It's very resource demanding, and it looks like it's going to require collaborative efforts from the region to maximize the dollar amount that we can get. I just took a few of those requirements from the NOFA just to show you the amount of information that's going to be needed for the application to be acceptable to EPA. So GHG reduction quantification, of course, the grant will require that to quantify the amount of GHG that will be reduced from the priority measure that will be in the application. And applicants will also need to demonstrate the cost effectiveness of that the measure or the program in the application. Then, of course, a documentation, a technical appendix that documents the assumptions and methodologies of the GHG reduction quantification will also need to be included in the application. Then the application needs to demonstrate the environmental results for GHG reduction and also co-pollutants, which is the criteria pollutants and air toxics. And then the application needs to quantify to analyze the benefits of these priority measures for low-income and disadvantaged communities. And then the applicants needs to demonstrate that the agency has the programmatic capability and also has demonstrate track record for past performance with EPA's grants. So that's also in the scoring criteria. For the budget, it requires a very detailed budget explaining each line item, how it's going to be spent, and all the details that required. If the region is going to go in as a coalition, then EPA will require the memorandum of agreement be signed by each of the partners in the coalition. Next. So given the magnitude of materials that need to be prepared and the short timeline that the region has to, if the region is going to submit such a application, then we really need to ask questions, among ourselves, whether the region is going to submit individual applications or the application will be submitted by a coalition of entities. And for your information, the application could be for just one measure in under one sector, or the application can cover multiple measures for multiple sectors. Now the question is, who is going to be the lead? Is there going to be multiple applications led by different agencies, or is any entities going to go submit their individual applications? Then we also need to look at what kind of measures or programs project we want to submit for funding. And we need to look at the scoring criteria to see, what kind of programs will score high. Of course, EPA, first of all, we need to see what kind of measures will be selected through the PCAP process as the priority measure, because that's the only kind of measure and programs that the EPA implementation grant will fund. And then we'll need to look at really, how much of GHG reduction that measure is going to achieve. Because of course, EPA is going to look at the magnitude of the GHG reduction through the measures in the application. Then we need to talk about how much we're going to ask for. Is it going to be 2 million, or is it going to be 50 million, or do we have enough need for 500 million? So really, the region needs to start thinking about such questions. And then, what does it take to put the application together? As I mentioned, this is going to be a very comprehensive application that will require a lot of resources, collaborative efforts. And we need to think about, whether any outside assistance will be needed for all the technical information that will be needed, and quantification methodologies that will be demonstrated in the application. Next. So, it seems like because of the resource demanding nature of the application, it seems like it makes sense for the region to come together just so that we don't duplicate our efforts. And the region needs to determine the needs early on so that, resources can be pulled together. And, action needs to be taken as soon as possible, because this opportunity will help the region reduce GHG, which also means that it will also improve the air quality too. Next. So this is a link to the implementation grant. As I mentioned, the grant application is due April 1st. Next. And that's it for our presentation today. Simran, Brendan, and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mike, with your hand up.
Yeah, Christine, in that slide regarding the application, I was originally going to ask about whether there was a component of your work to include a comprehensive cost analysis of the preferred measures, or the measures that are decided that you want to proceed on or believe might be useful. But I do see in the application it requires a cost analysis. So that answers my question.
Yes.
And that's of each element of your proposed action plan, right?
So the cost effective analysis needs to be included for each of the program that the region will be applying for funding for. Yes, you need to be part of the application.
Okay, so that analysis will be ongoing as these measures are studied.
So for the PCAP, I want to clarify that for the PCAP, because the short timeline that EPA gave to all the agencies, we actually just kick off early this month, and it will be due by March 1st. So for the PCAP portion, I think we will just be doing the quantification process. The cost component is not a required component of the PCAP. But I think the region probably during the application process will need to have some kind of a cost estimate together, so that how much money you're going to need, you're going to put into the application. Then we'll go from GHG amount of GHG that will be reduced by the measure and divided by the total cost that you're asking for. That's how I assume the cost effectiveness is going to be derived.
If any particular, so the problem I see is that you're not going to include it in the selection of the measures, but you're going to require some cost analysis in the 30 days between when the plan has to be adopted and the application has to be submitted. That's not, I don't think that's enough time to study any cost implication
Right,
of
yeah.
any of the measures.
When we started, when I was still at Fresno COG, and I was the one who wrote the grant, I told EPAs there's not enough time for us to actually sufficient time to even develop the PCAP, because normally such a plan would take a year, and EPA only gave us like 5 months to do it. So they told everyone that, okay, the PCAP will be simplified. You can use the whatever existing, the data on the existing plan, to do an estimate. But I think our proposed methodology to quantify the measures that will be identified as priority measure will be through the GHG inventory process. So we'll be looking at the sectors that are emitting GHG and provide an estimation of the GHG inventory for different sectors and the measures proposed. And then the methodology really to identify the priority measure is to look at the magnitude of GHG inventory. And then of course, we're going to ask the stakeholders and the public what they think should be the priority measure for our region. So these are the two components we're going to get to the priority measure selection.
Yeah, but then you don't have any cost estimate of what that priority measure will be.
Yeah, I think the
twice
cost,
the cost of the measure.
yeah,
The
I think,
economic impact of analysis could show that a measure is infeasible because of the cost.
right. So the PCAP process does not have enough time and budget for the cost component, but I do know that there are tools out there, models out there can actually estimate the cost. So if the region feels that there's the need for outside technical assistance, then I know there are experts out there who can actually do such cost estimates for different measures.
Okay, well, that's what I'm concerned about, is there's really isn't a lot of time to analyze these measures for their cost impact.
Right. It's
And that may be the desire of EPA. They don't want to have these measures questioned as to the cost impact they may have on the community. If they're only giving you 5 months to go through the study and then a month to prepare an application,
right.
that seems like they're rushing. Are
So
they trying to get this money spent or something?
right. So our recommendation is don't wait until March 1st to start the application process. Start now. Stakeholders of the agency need to meet now to really figure out, to answer all those questions that I just listed on the slides. Who's going to take lead? How much money are we going to ask for? And pull resources together, and what kind of measures. We probably have some idea that which sector will have the most, which sectors will have the most GHG emission. Transportation always is the top one. We all know that transportation sector emits about 50% of the GHG. So I imagine the program will go under transportation for funding, but how much and in what kind of program, that will be discussed by the group who are interested. And for example, I'm not trying to put Fresno COG on the spot. For a program such as transportation, I will imagine a regional transportation agency like Fresno COG. It will make sense for them to take the lead to put a program together. So all the 16 jurisdictions will be eligible under this comprehensive program that it's going to be led by Fresno COG. But it does take time, resources, and money, and efforts to put it together.
Okay, thanks, Christine.
You're welcome.
Christine, do you have any ideas of what might be the areas that EPA is looking at as far as would get the best chance for winning?
So there is they do list the scoring criterias for
Okay.
the grants, and as I said, one of the most important factor will be they will be looking at, of course, the amount of GHG that will be reduced by the measure. So, and then there's all the other criteria that they will be looking at, like how well you document your technical assumptions and methodologies, and whether the agency has experience with implementing EPA grant. All these are part of their criteria. Yeah.
Yeah, because I doubt any of our communities by themselves, except maybe the big ones, have even applied for an EPA grant before.
Exactly. And only government agencies will be eligible, and only those government agencies are they're allowed to have grants.gov, which this grant will only be accepted through grants.gov account.
Christine, this is Mohammed from county. So for agricultural sector, you are basically looking at the greenhouse gas generated by the machinery, not the dust and other pollutants that are created by agricultural or farming activities.
I assume the example I listed in my slide is the GHG emission from the ag machineries, and the dust it's more like PM 2.5, PM 10, which is not really if those PM 2.5, PM 10 they're emitted by tractors, then they're qualified. But if it's just road dust, then they're not really part of the GHG emission formula or part of the component.
And that's why I asked the question, because using tractors to turn over soil and preparing land for seeding and stuff for future farming operation, it creates a lot of pollution in Fresno County area, especially on the west side.
Right.
So
And
that only applies to, if it only applies to dust that is created by the machinery, that should be counted.
right. So, in the grant, I think this is a perfect example of that EPA wanted to see the co-benefits of the reduction of the criteria pollutants. So the combustion engine from those tractors, of course, they produce GHG, but then it also produces PM 2.5 and PM 10. So EPA does take into consideration of those criteria pollutant reduction too, through this grant. So that's something that we'll also be looking at too. And really, there's a lot of benefit for the region to get this grant, because we all know a lot of the emission sources for GHG and the criteria pollutants, they are similar. So if we reduce GHG, it will also help the region with the air quality too.
So, Christine, my other question is there an indication that Air Pollution Control District is going to compete against cities and the county at all?
Well, the air district has a representative here.
And that's my question for him, because I think it makes sense if all jurisdictions that would be beneficiary of this for the future implementation work together. But I don't know if the state has, different ideas as far as how it's going to be implemented to benefit Fresno County region or not. Maybe Kevin can answer that question sort of.
Yeah, I'd love to take a crack at a share here, but I think ultimately you're right. We should not be seeking to compete. We should be seeking to collaborate. And I think at the state level, I'm getting the same message. You know, as a regional air district, we actually have two municipal statistical areas, MSAs that were eligible that are in our area. So we're coordinating with them, but we also have many counties that are not in one of these MSAs that are able to do their own PCAPs. And so we're working with the state on their PCAP that will cover the other 6 counties that we don't have, you know, that aren't going to be running their own process. So I think a key aspect is this collaboration. You know, Christine mentioned in her presentation that EPA made it clear that they don't want to have projects, or they won't approve projects that have overlapping jurisdictions that are the same. So, you know, if the state project wants to do something specific and a local municipality does also, you'll want to be careful that you're not butting heads over that. So I think that working to coordinate is one of those difficult things, but it's going to be one of the most important parts of this project, is finding ways that we can work collaboratively and help each other out and make sure that we're asking for congruent things rather than things that are going to be, you know, butting heads with each other. So you know, if there is a specific portion where you've got, you know, a really good priority and you want to look at a particular area, you know, maybe you're a good lead for that coalition, and we'll form, you know, a group to put together that, you know, would be on your coalition of that application. And you know, we'll maybe the district wants to be a part of that, you know, if it fits our mission and we have, you know, the bandwidth, so to speak, to be able to participate. But you know, collaboration, I think, is going to be the key, and I hope that I'm, you know, able to find a way to get that and collaborating here, but also making sure that this group is working to collaborate at that state level and ensuring that we're not butting heads and rather finding congruent projects.
Very good answer, Kevin. I appreciate that. So Christine, I just want to make sure we all understand this phase of the project is to do the inventory and propose measures that can reduce greenhouse gases, and then the next phase would be implementation of those programs or goals.
Okay, so let me clarify that. So Fresno COG received $1 million of planning grant to do a regional climate action plan. And the PCAP is the first phase of the $1 million planning grant. And there are 2 more phases, which our firm is not, you know, Fresno COG is going to you know, go out again for RFP and, you know, to solicit, I assume, help. But the second portion of the planning grant is, as Simran and Brenda mentioned, is the comprehensive climate action plan. It's the CCAP. So in the CCAP, there will be more money, there will be more time. It's about 2 years to develop CCAP. Then the region will be looking to really to do another more comprehensive GHG inventory, and then really to look at the forecast into the future of the GHG emission from all the sectors, and then trying to set a target for the GHG reduction for the region for all the sectors, and, you know, do more comprehensive the analysis of the benefit cost analysis for the low income and disadvantaged communities, as well as for the entire region. So there will be more comprehensive work done for the CCAP. And then the third phase is the status report after a few more years, really to update the inventory again, to take another look at the forecast and the target and all that. So these are the 3 phases of the $1 million planning grant. The implementation grant is separate from the planning grant. Implementation grant is nationwide competitive, altogether $4.6 billion available. The implementation grant is based on the PCAP, the first component of the $1 million planning grant. So by the time the implementation application is due for the implementation grant, I don't really think the CCAP has started yet. Just not enough time for that. So that's kind of the sequence of different components of the planning grant and then the implementation grant.
I think Christine's already stressed this enough, but it's really, the guidelines we're working with from EPA, we're being kind of forced to expedite the plan, which includes the outreach. And Christine's been very helpful and proactive in kind of wanting to highlight, why we're doing this and the implementation grants coming down. So we're trying to at least get something going so we're not scrambling post March 1st when the PCAP is complete to secure some of this implementation grant funding. I don't know, Eric, you have a question?
Oh, I was just thinking that something related to rural transit, and electrification, or, would be a good area to maybe focus on that would involve all the smaller communities. Maybe get a good GHG reduction, since you're saying, and transportation's the biggest polluter.
And we
Yeah.
have Moses on the call from FCRJ,
Right.
so if he has
Yeah.
anything to add on that, but
Trying to get your money, Moses.
Yeah, transit, bike and pet, I think even, the typical GHG reduction of air quality improvement projects under a lot of it that's eligible under CMAQ, like traffic synchronization, a lot of such projects are eligible. So, if the region wants to really put it together, it really makes sense.
Mike?
Yeah, how soon is EPA going to tell you when you submit the plan whether it meets their criteria? Because you're going to, 30 days after you submit it, you're going to have to submit an application. So if you submit an application and EPA rejects your plan, what good is the application?
So Simran, I don't know. The plan is due March 1st.
Right.
I was reading their guideline on the PCAP. They really didn't really say anything about rejection, approval, or so that there's nothing listed in their guidelines says they are going to reject the plan if this. As long as we are developing the PCAP based on all the components in the guideline, I think. And then we, of course, Simran has been communicating with EPA staff from the get-go. So I assume, they will provide input too during the process.
Right. Yeah, I've been working on
The
a
same thing applies. If you submit a bad plan and they don't tell you it's a bad plan, then all the applications for projects under that plan are going to be worthless. Right? If EPA doesn't like your plan and the measures don't measure up to what they want, then any applications submitted under that plan are going to be shot down.
I don't want to jump in too deep, so I apologize if I'm out of turn here, but I don't get the impression that this is like our Clean Air Act plans where there's a specific process for approval, and these are something where they wanted us, they want identified priority actions. I think that as long as the item is identified in one of these plans, if there's an element of that plan that they think, oh, we wish you would do better on, I think what EPA's actions are going to be on that case is going to be to ask you to
Right.
reevaluate that in more depth in your comprehensive climate plan. And again, these aren't like the plans that we develop for attainment, where there's going to be enforceable measures that have Clean Air Act ramifications. These are plans to help. This is funding to help locations like MSAs or states to determine actions that they can take, and then this first round of funding gives them an opportunity to do that. So I don't know that I would be afraid of being like declined, other than being outcompeted in the other process. If the project that you put in there was not liked by EPA, then I guess they probably wouldn't like it in their quantification methods and how they score it either. So that would be just as exclusionary. So I think the goal here would be just to put together the best projects you can, to make sure all the projects that we want to put together, that we have coalitions for, get listed in the PCAP as a measure that we want to move forward on, and then make good projects and make good applications.
I agree with Kevin, because EPA staff kept reassuring us that they are going to be flexible, because with the PCAP because they understand, the region does not have enough time really to look very deep into a lot of the components, so and they say the purpose of really developing the PCAP, at a really high level, really it will be just to get the regions who are eligible to apply for the implementation grant. So that's their purpose for the PCAP.
Yes, and EPA has been vocal on, this is the new program. So a lot of flexibility to reiterate what Christine said. And there's a lot of preliminary work that's being done to make sure that we are in compliance with what they're asking for. There's extensive additional plans in place to, secure our plan overall. There's a quality assurance project plan that I've been working on with EPA to hopefully, make it all sufficient.
So as the group and the agencies come up with their measures, you will be able to comment on a particular measure whether you believe EPA will accept that measure as we go along through this process. That's what I'm getting out of what your statement.
Yeah, and especially because it is a very technical process. We'll be using existing data and state data and EPA's measurement tools. The compliance and the requirements are all within the work being done on the technical side that I would argue would be really hard to, negate our efforts because we're working with what they're giving us.
Hey, Mike, I'm on the consulting side, although I'm on consulting side, but I will try my best to deliver quality project, just like when I was at Fresno COG. So
Yeah, it's a good thing you are, Christine, because COG and the agencies in COG, and everybody has participated in these kind of projects. So I think that's very helpful for you to jump over to LSA and help the county out.
right, and we do have technical people in this area to back me up. So. Any other questions?
We do have a question from an attendee, Nicola. I'm going to allow her to talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Hi. So we're wondering kind of if there's an overall, I know you've mentioned like meetings and stuff like that with community members, but kind of a bigger picture plan for how to incorporate that feedback into the PCAP and then the implementation grant application, and then moving forward to make sure that community members know how their input was used and to ensure that that feedback does continue. It doesn't just stop after April 1st. And that's part of, again, something that the EPA is really looking for as implementing Justice 40 and all of that. They've been really big on community input and meaningful engagement with communities. So if we don't do that in the plan, then the chances of it being approved are a lot lower. Thanks.
I can address the portions on as far as integrating it into the planning work that LSA is doing, that Simran is working on. I'll let them address that with you. But as far as letting them know how their comments were integrated, keeping them informed throughout the process, of anybody who participates in this program that offers a contact and gives us a way to communicate back to them will stay in the process. That's the beauty of sort of the system that we're using. We're able to keep track of that a lot better and communicate back with them as we move forward into the CCAP. And so they can see what we're doing, how we're moving forward, and then going forward, what additional opportunities they would have to continue to participate in the process. Does anyone want to address her first part as far as how that community engagement will integrate into beyond sharing it with stakeholders and TTC PAC board, how it integrates into the decision-making process?
It's a component of selecting the priority measures. So it will be integrated in the plan as well as through the LIDAC benefit analysis. We'll include what the recommendations or input from the public has been. Christine, if you want to speak more to the
Right.
SSG and what they'll be doing with LIDAC on that.
So, for the PCAP, there is a requirement for to provide benefit analysis for the priority measures. So that will be done as part of the PCAP. In terms of the priority measure selection process, as Simran and Brenda mentioned, we have the technical information available, and about the GHG emission by sectors from different programs, we will take that information out to the public and ask the public their input, opinion on, which measure and should be prioritized. So that opinion will be brought back to this committee, to this body, really for consideration. And then this committee will make a recommendation to the TTC PAC board in terms of which priority measure will be included in the PCAP. In terms of implementation grant, which I'm just making assumptions, I'm guessing, that the disadvantaged community benefit will also be an important component, as it's required component in the application. But the region, when the region is working on putting the application together, the region, of course, will be very mindful of the benefits that will go down to the disadvantaged communities, because this accounts for it's important for the region, first of all, and air quality issues and GHG issues are really important. And then people living in the disadvantaged community, they have less resources really to mitigate the GHG impact, the climate event, and the air quality. So it's important. And in the scoring criteria, the disadvantaged community benefit from these measures has a lot of points too. So that's something that when the application is put together, the region will be considering that.
And Nicola, did you have anything else you wanted to inquire about? I see your hand still up before we move on to Matthew.
Thanks. Yeah. So I'm just a little unsure if that'll be too late in the process to actually engage with community if we wait until after the LSA analysis goes through, because obviously, especially around the holidays, that's just going to be a really hard time to actually interact with community members. And if they have community meetings once a month, that just doesn't give a lot of time to actually get that feedback and then bring it back to the stakeholders in January and then on to the TTC in February.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're just working with an extremely tight and unaccommodating timeline. But we wouldn't be able to share anything with the public if we don't have that analysis done first. So that's just the circumstances we're facing now. But like Brenda had mentioned in her presentation, she is open to having individual meetings with the public or specific community groups to discuss, what they'd like to see. So that is still an open call there.
Yeah, so if you know you want to meet, which we've talked already, I know we want to schedule something with the communities that you serve. then let's get that on the calendar as soon as possible. We're looking at trying to set up most of our outreach mid-November to mid-December. It is only a month and it's very tight. And it depends on what we can get together before then. But as we had previously discussed, we have to have something to specifically ask people about their priorities. We have to know what sectors we can work with to reduce greenhouse gas, and then what the priority measures are going to be as a result of that. So, but if we know that we want to get feedback from specific groups that we can get a hold of, we can get that on the calendar and try to be as prepared ahead of time as possible. So continue, please, to communicate with me as to what your needs are and when those meetings would be.
And
It's
Matt-
already end of November. We're only two almost 3 weeks away from going out.
Matthew? Hi.
Yes, thank you. Just a real quick question, and I might have missed it on the stakeholder list there, but who is representing the disadvantaged communities on the stakeholder committee?
It's Angela Castellanos from Central Valley Community Foundation.
Central Valley Community Foundations, are they already actively, I mean, I know they generally are actively engaged in a lot of different communities, but are they speaking for these disadvantaged communities, or they're doing out? How can we understand that a little bit better?
They're serving as representation for the disadvantaged communities. It's however, Brenda is spearheading the public outreach. So as far as communicating with disadvantaged communities and the public, that is really in the hands of our outreach efforts from Fresno COG. But Angela is going to be the point of contact for the disadvantaged communities to funnel any input if they're not able to, if they're not sharing it with us already, with myself and Brenda and the project management team. So, and each of the other stakeholder steering committees are representing, you know, their local government or their agency to share with us what they'd like to see. So,
I'll just throw it out there right now, that if there is potentially another agency that could collaborate as a stakeholder in that disadvantaged community slot with Central Valley Community Foundation, I think that might go a long way to get some more actionable feedback from those communities. I think there's a little disconnect between disadvantaged and Central Valley Community Foundation.
thank you for your input.
Yep. Thank you.
Simran, I think Sarah and Leslie, they have their hands up.
Okay. Sarah?
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. This is Sarah Sharp. I'm with Central California Asthma Collaborative, and formerly with EPA Region 9. So very familiar with this planning and the timeline, and I'm happy to see what Fresno County is doing. I had the same reaction, I think, that Matt did. Nothing personal against Central Valley Community Foundation, but I think that we have a lot of disadvantaged communities in our county. So we could probably benefit from having more than one representative on the steering committee or stakeholder committee, if you're open to considering that. In other COG, I used to be on many COG committees over the years, and there usually was more than one disadvantaged. Well, I don't think we even called them disadvantaged communities back when I was around, but there were more community representatives sometimes from different perspectives. Like, for example, my organization would probably be considered a health perspective organization. I know we had that many times, maybe on the Measure C committee and others. So I would just urge you to consider that. That might help alleviate and make our plan look even more appealing to EPA, as I forget who mentioned it earlier, but the Justice 40, I think it was Nicola, or and investments in disadvantaged communities and environmental justice communities is a high priority for EPA at this time. And so anyway, I would be happy to serve on the committee if you would be interested, given that I was working on this before I was at US EPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think we had Leslie. Question.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
First off, hi, Kristen. Congrats on the
Hi.
gig. Glad
Hello.
you're part of the process. But yeah, really echoing my colleagues' points around Central. Again, it's no beef on Central Valley Foundation, but I'm very concerned about like there's no direct representation for some of the, I put it in the chat as well, but just like really huge concern for communities, like for someone who doesn't work directly with communities. And when I say directly, I mean is like a prominent figure in the community, understands what's happening around the community in terms of like what different like whether it's the west side, the east side, central Fresno, like how are we going to engage those communities? I think there is very specific guidelines for what meaningful engagement looks like. I think that there's Fresno's really lucky where there's a big group of community-based organizations. So a little disappointed that not one of them made it to represent the disadvantaged communities. Also would consider having a CBO not like for the regions because they are very different, but then on top of that, like a reminder that like there is public health. There's a lot of folks who have served on a ton of COG different advisory committees. So just really want to ensure that we find a way to make sure that the voices from community and those who have been working with community for some organizations for over like 40 years, like that expertise is used, because I think that goes a long way with the EPA. And like as Sarah mentioned, EPA Region 9, like I think that there's a very good understanding of what robust engagement looks like. So just want to make sure that, again, happy to figure out to work. I'm really excited to work with Brenda on figuring out dates for the areas that we work in and to ensure that there's a robust community engagement there. But, there's a big group of organizations. There's even more like community-led groups, parent groups that, aren't going to be able to be part of the process. So just making sure we figure out a way to bring those voices at the forefront of this process instead of, looking at it more like, I guess let's be proactive about it instead of, reactive, and figuring out how we can do that, whether it's we jump on a call with Brenda and really figure out how we do this right. Thank you. And Brenda, I'm sure we'll talk more.
Thank you, Leslie. I think Eric and then Angela.
I think Angelo's first.
Oh, Angela. Okay, it's backwards.
Yeah, I'll share that. I agree with the previous comments. I definitely think welcoming more voices would be wonderful, and especially in this space necessary. I'll also share that at the Central Valley Community Foundation, I'm specifically working on the Jobs First initiative, formerly the Community Economic Resiliency Fund program, where we are working with very diverse stakeholders across the region in Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Tulare. And some of our stakeholders do include community organizations, community-based organizations, more of our rural disadvantaged areas. Some of those folks focus on public health. Some of those folks work with non-English speakers. Some of those folks work with low-income communities. So we are engaging with a lot of communities that represent some of the communities that you guys have shared and highlighted right now, just now. So definitely we are engaging with those folks. We are developing regional economic development plans that they are guiding, they're developing, they're providing input, and really driving the process. So yes, agree with more voices. Being in this space is definitely necessary, and just wanted to share a little bit more about the work that we're doing through the foundation.
Thank you, Angela.
I was just going to point out that, most of us working in these small communities, our communities are disadvantaged communities. So we're representing those cities that have disadvantaged residents there. So, we're bringing in their voices through us as well.
Thank you, Eric. am I missing any questions? There was several questions in the Q&A. So if anybody wants to look at any of those as well, that might answer something that was on your mind. Do we have any more questions and considerations? I think it's a viable idea, and we want to make it welcoming and hopefully work to create a more than sufficient plan and do what we set out to do, which is reduce air quality and improve public health as well as the quality of life for all of the residents in the Fresno County region, which includes the low income and disadvantaged communities. Does anybody else have any other comments, questions? Christine or Brenda, do you guys have any last items?
No, just feel free to contact any of us if you have any questions down the road. We'll be happy to assist you or answer any questions.
Rodney?
I had a quick question. Could we get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation if possible?
Yes, I'll be loading it onto the engagement hub that I posted, the QR code and all that. And we can send you a follow-up email with to where you go to get that information. That's really going to be a key spot to get everything that we're generating that we talked about is that engagement hub.
Awesome, thank you.
We'll load that right away.
I think we can send all of our attendees a follow-up, share the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, if there aren't any other questions. Brenda's in. If there aren't any other questions, I believe we can conclude our first Stakeholder Steering Committee meeting. I want to thank not only our members of the Stakeholder Steering Committee meeting, but the public who has joined to learn more about the Priority Climate Action Plan. And I hope that you guys stay engaged in the process. We'll have more information that follows this meeting as discussed. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.